So I could talk about a whole bunch of different things. So I used to own a engineering architectural firm, which I sold back to my partners
Mm,
at the end of 18. And I ran that. I was president and owner of that, and I sold that business because I call this my third chapter of life. I love
mm,
what I'm doing. I entered the business brokerage M&A world. I am first generation. My dad came over on a boat through Ellis Island. I'm Lebanese descent, so I was born in America, but my dad came over. He met my mom at church, um, and she was first generation American. Her father came over from Lebanon in 1916. So I've got a I've got a big passion, and he couldn't read or write when he came over because he was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire.
mm.
And when he came to America, he enlisted in World War I to fight as an American, and then he ended up successfully starting multiple dry cleaning businesses as an immigrant, and was very successful. Put six girls through college. That was my grandpa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then my dad, when he came over to go to school, and he ended up meeting my mom at church, and they ended up falling in love and getting married. And that's how I grew up in Ohio. Uh,
Mm, okay.
and my wife is from North Carolina. My undergrad is an electrical engineering degree, and I worked at a company up in Ohio called Lincoln Electric Manufacturer. I did a lot of automation and controls work. My wife is a mechanical engineer. I met her in Cleveland, and she's from North Carolina originally, but she went to Clemson, and she was working at General Electric as a manufacturing engineer for them. So
Nice.
we've lived in North Carolina since 1990, and I've been involved with multiple businesses, startups. I had a manufacturing operation. A good friend of mine, he's from Shanghai, Chinese. He went to MBA school here in the U.S. and I had a product made in Shenzhen over in
Mm.
China, and so got a lot of history. So I could talk about
Yeah, yeah.
whatever you want. I could talk about manufacturing. I could talk about politics. I could talk about Transworld.
All right. That's great actually that you have so much to talk about. So we'll definitely touch on those topics. I guess first of all, I guess you kind of mentioned kind of hinted at this already, but so do you think it was kind of like your dad's like business background that kind of got you into this business sector? And I guess like how did you end up where you are now, like with doing stuff with Transworld and like business brokerage?
Yeah, good question. So my mom and dad. So my dad came over from overseas, met my mom, but my mom and dad were both school teachers,
Mm.
and we had a great family life. But it was really my mother who was the entrepreneur. She was always selling stuff, jewelry, and she was always looking for ways to help, and worked a lot in nonprofits. And so at a young age, I remember selling monogram pencils when I was 10 years old to all my classmates. And I
Mm.
remember going into a secondhand store, and they had crock pots that had a blemish on it. And I told my mom, I remember mom making pot roast at home. And I said, look, they're only selling these for $1, $2, $3. And so she encouraged me to, hey, why don't you take your allowance, buy some, and resell them. And so I ended up doing that at a young age. So I was always had my hands in and around business and entrepreneurship. Uh, and then after I graduated high school, so I waited tables. I worked in the service industry, and then when before I went to college, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was a Rotary Youth Exchange student to Sweden for a year. So
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
and
Yeah.
and and that's one of the things that I highly recommend. One of your questions was talking about youth and some things
Right, you're right.
to do. That was probably the best year of my life, Brian.
Wow.
I grew up. I was 17. I lived there for a year as a Rotary Youth Exchange student. spend the next year of high school. But I made so many friends. And then before I left, when I was 18, I turned to 18 over there. Toward the end of my year, I spent 6 weeks backpacking through Europe and
Mm.
went with a Canadian friend that was Rotarian in Sweden. So he and I backpacked by ourselves. There was no internet back then, and we learned so much and met people all over the world. They're the same. They want love, they want respect, they want,
Mm.
protection for their family,
Right.
education. And so, but when you take all that, so because I was real good with math and science, my dad being first generation was like, well, like I always loved real estate. I always loved business and real estate. And my dad was like, everybody goes into real estate, or everybody, you're smart, math and science. He's first generation. You need to be an engineer. So you think most people that come from the U.S., especially Asian culture, Middle Eastern culture, engineer, doctor, lawyer.
Right.
They
Right.
think that's what you have to be.
Yeah.
And I always loved business. I always want to do business. No, everybody does business. You're smart. You need to get an engineering degree. So I was young and influential, and I mean young and I got a little cold, so don't mind my
Oh
nasal.
yeah. I'm sorry
Uh,
about that.
no, it's okay. But I was young and very impressionable, and I said, okay, I'm good at math and science. But I always knew that once I had my engineering degree, I was going to combine it with an MBA.
Mm.
And I ended up ultimately getting the Duke MBA
Oh wow.
to combine with my engineering. And so, um, so what I did is I had my wife Jarma. We were living in Cleveland. We weren't married at the time. We were dating, and we got engaged. And I was actually going to go to France uh, to study international MBA, get an international MBA when I was like 23, 24.
Mm.
And then her
Interesting.
brother got sick, came down with cancer, terminal
Mm.
cancer, and within a year he passed away. So her
Mm.
father had a business that he was running in North Carolina, an engineering firm. And he said to her, "Look, I really like to have you come home. We need you here." She missed them, and I think I always loved about my wife is she's very family oriented. We've been married 35 years, and probably a lot like your culture. It's all about family, family
Right. Right.
first,
Definitely.
right? And so we made a move down to North Carolina. I worked in her father's engineering business and worked my way up. We were about 12 people when I started. Ultimately, when I sold back to my business partners, I was president. And we had 75 people, a couple locations in different cities, but I never had the passion for engineering. I always felt like I had to go into it. So I always was dreaming of that day. It's a long-winded answer. I always dreamt of the day where I can mix real estate and business together.
Mm.
And so when I was 54, about to turn 55, which is late in life, I went to my business partners at my engineering company and I said, guys, I'm ready for a change. I love you, but I want to do something different. They're like, what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea, but I want you to, I want to work a buyout plan. We had internal buyout plan where you pay me out over years and let me figure out what I want to do. So what I did, and this is something I've taught to young kids with, and I did career planning over my 35 years in business, 40 years in
Mm.
business, is I took a sheet of paper for me and I said I had on one side everything I love, what do I love, and on the other side what I don't love. And what I did is I said I love business, I love real estate, I love travel. I want something that I can make a living with, that I can use my computer or my phone. But I'm on the other side. I don't want to be stuck to an office. I
Mm.
don't want to deal with toxic
Right.
people. I don't want to
Yeah,
travel.
definitely.
Yeah, I don't want to be on the road away from my family. And so I had all the things I love and don't love. And then so when I look and I wanted to live in North Carolina, so I said, what matches up with all that? And then I researched the market. I put a spreadsheet together, and I kept coming up with this thing called business brokers, which I knew nothing about. Uh, so then I interviewed a couple of people who were in it, and they told me to go to the IBBA, International Business Brokers Association conference, which was in Florida. I went, I listened, I observed, and I said, this is it. So I call this my third chapter of life, but advice I would give to young people is don't settle. No matter what your dad, your mom, your professors, what is it that makes Brian tick? What do you love? Because if you do what you love, you'll be successful. As long as
Right.
you do it really well and you ask for help. And then the other thing is advice to young people I would give is you want to build your Knights of the Round Table. I call it the Knights of the Round Table. So you want to have people like me that don't have a dog in the fight
Mm.
on how you do or what you do, but people that care about you and your future, the future of our country. Uh, you want to have a half dozen to a dozen of those people that you can
Mm.
reach out to and say, "Hey, I got something I want to run by you." And but if you do those two things, regardless of what you do in life, and you be the best at it, you'll be successful. I made a change
Yeah.
at 55. Have had a lot of success in 5 years, just 5 years.
Just
And
5 years. Wow.
yeah, and prior to that, I was president. I didn't have to leave, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I was making a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
money. I had great benefits, but it wasn't about. I didn't feel like I was giving back. Now I'm helping people fulfill the American dream of business ownership.
Yeah, yeah. That's a truly wow, that's great actually. That advice particularly really it sticks with me. Something I've been thinking about as well, given my I guess the crossroads I'm at for like, college and all of that. It's very yeah, very poignant. So I guess with all this experience and all these stories you have with your background, do you have anything that like really sticks out or like really is memorable? Like something that I guess you can't go about your business journey without really talking about.
Um, well, I'll tell you an example of a business sale I made last year that was very satisfying.
All right.
Uh, there was a gentleman in Virginia that had a manufacturing plant. He was a German immigrant,
Mm.
and he started a business in Virginia. And a friend of mine, when I worked in the engineering world, was a commercial real estate developer out of Charlotte. And this business in Virginia, the guy was 72 years old. His wife was sick, living out of state, and his business was struggling. They were doing 7 million top line sales consistently for 5 years in a row. Had a great product, but they weren't making any money, no money. So typically in our business, like your dad knows, when we sell a business, you sell it based on cash flow. How much
Mm.
cash flow is the business generating? This business wasn't generating any cash flow, but it had a facility, it had 40 employees, it had inventory, and it had a good brand name. The real estate guy says, Tony, I've got the building, I got an offer on the building for $2.8 million. The seller's seriously thinking about taking it, but he's got this 42-year business and has been very successful over the years. And he's so sad thinking that he's going to have to let all his people go and he's going to have to shut his business. He said, would you be willing to try to sell it? I said, let me go look at it. Let me see. I'm one of these. I help anybody. I don't care if they've got a startup. I might not be able to take the listing, but I'll give them advice to help make them better. So that's part of my mission of helping people, small businesses, big business. Anyways,
Right.
I went, met with this guy. I toured his facility, great facility, people working, great equipment, inventory. So I took on the listing, and I remember coming home that day talking to my wife, and I'm like, I don't know why I did this. It was my heartstring pulled at me. I got to help this guy. I don't
Mm.
want to see him shut this
Yeah.
thing down. I said, but I don't think I'll be able to sell this thing. She said, why'd you do it? I said, I don't know. I just I empathized with this gentleman. You know, he's going to close a 40+ year business. Anyways, I used all the tools that I had at my disposal. Uh, I ended up finding a strategic buyer out of state that had 1,200 employees that that wanted to take this product and roll it into their portfolio products. And they were leasing a facility. The lease was coming up, and they had the opportunity to move into something that they owned, a nice 100,000 square foot building. They went from non-union from union to non-union with 40 workers, and they were able to bring product down, and they were able to roll this product into their portfolio.
Mm.
We sold that business for 5.8 million.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that guy's wife called me. She had cancer. She cried on the phone to me, and she was so grateful. And she says, "You changed our lives." And
Mm.
that's why I do what I do. So that story right there,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not, and it wasn't about the money. It was like I wanted to help a fellow human being. So
Yeah,
if you
right.
do that in life, it comes back tenfold.
No, yeah, that's certainly very powerful. Um, I guess that, you know, my dad has mentioned stuff like this as well, partially that it's really fulfilling to help these people get where they want their businesses. You know, not always about the money, right? Like the human side of it is very, very strong as well, right? These are real people with real stories, real backgrounds, and well, they're here where they're at, and they're, you know, they need your help, and that's if you can make a difference, that I bet, you know, it'd feel great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just to let you know, I grew up Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not real religious. I'm spiritual, and so
Okay.
I loving kindness is my religion. So,
Mm.
like, I study all the world's religions, and I don't think there's one right way. And I try to live the word, the model, what Jesus Christ does. But I am not like, if you're Jewish or you believe in Islam or Hindu or Buddha, it doesn't matter to me. It's like love and kindness, living the word, helping the fellow human being is what's important. Fiscally, I'm conservative.
Hmm.
I like a budget. I like minimal government. Um, Socially, I'm very liberal. How you live your life, who you love, the color of your skin, your religion, it's your own business. I don't want anybody in my business. And so it's been kind of a struggle for me, because one of the things you talked about was tariffs and political climate,
Yeah, yeah.
immigration and all that. Because um I've been a registered independent for over 20 years because the far right makes me nervous. I don't,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
too right.
certainly.
The far left. So I'm like, I think 70-80% of people are right in the middle, but they're drowned out by the extreme,
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so my point with that is, like, I love being a product of a father and grandfather that came to this country like your dad did. And this country was made up of immigrants. Everybody here was an immigrant other than the native population, the Indians. And I'm very grateful for this country. We have a lot of issues, but we can fix them, and part of my mission of what I'm going to be doing going forward is I'm going to be working closely with helping to attract foreign capital to America. I want people to fulfill the
Mm.
American dream like I have, and like my dad has, and like Austin
Yeah.
has. And even the pendulum has shifted so far to the right. It was in the left. I think it's going to come in the middle, and we're going to be okay. So I have a hope that it's people like you, young people like you, that's going to make this country better, and the promise of the American dream.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Very, I mean, I certainly think that's like how it is right now, right? Like, what the I guess for us young people, our goal is to navigate this current climate and see where we stand, how we're gonna orient ourselves. So I guess on that like note of like um the current political environment, um What are your, I guess, thoughts or do you have anything you want to say about the recent tariff changes imposed by the current administrations? Like, talk about maybe how they impacted you, how they impacted people concerns or, possible ways out for this matter.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'm a free market guy.
Mm.
I don't like a lot of government intervention. I think
Right.
other than healthcare, transportation, environmental, clean water, all the fundamental things, I think everyone should have a right to. So, but from a I don't like entitlement. I don't feel like people owe any. I think we need to help we need to help those that can't help themselves. So people with special needs, everyone, a family that can't afford health care and their child has cancer, our, our society needs to help. So, I mean, there's things like that, but everyone needs to contribute and participate in making this nation better. Um, I love Thomas Friedman. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
him, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
he wrote a book that I loved years ago that I read called "The World Is Flat." That thing's been turned upside down. I mean, countries that economically work together with strong ties typically don't attack each other. You know, if people have food in their belly and they see an opportunity and they're treated with respect, then 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 they're not angry and they're not outlashing. So I don't like the political climate now. I am not a Trump fan at all. It's not like how I raised my children. Uh, Probably for my checkbook for my savings is probably a good thing for me, but that's not why I feel like most of the people are in the middle. I want to pay my fair share of taxes. I think the tariffs, you had allies in Mexico and Canada that have been our friends. Now I'm worried about the U.S. Right now, we're the only reserve currency
Mm.
in the world, but we have a lot of debt and people are buying our bonds. And if there's an alternative to the U.S. dollar, then we're going to be in trouble. America's going to be in trouble because uh, the foreigners are helping to fund our debt. And so you need fair trade, but it needs to be free trade. So there are, you know, you've got to have, in my opinion, is the flow of capital, critical things like healthcare, pharmaceuticals, electronics for defense, those kind of things we should manufacture in the U.S. Ones that we're dependent on for our survival. Commodities, shoes, and t-shirts and things like that. I think wherever, if it helps another country, the textiles and because we can't, unemployment's less than 4% now in the US. We're going to have to revise our immigration policy has been broken for 40 years. We got to get that fixed. Do we need secure borders? Of course. People need to be here legally, but you just can't deport 20 million people. Construction industry, agriculture, everybody's feeling it. So there has to be a solution. My solution is you say, look, you have 6 months to come in, get fingerprinted. If you're here illegally and you haven't had any crime against you, we're going to give you a temporary working visa. You're going to pay a $10,000 fine, 1,000 a year for 10 years. After 10 years, if you don't have any kind of felony or any kind of criminal record, and if you're contributing to our country, then you'll get your green card or you get your citizenship. But America is a mix of everybody, and we've really have alienated a lot of our allies. And I, I think the tariffs, Trump's got a lot of bluster, and I think a lot of it's a negotiating ploy. but he's already backtracked on a lot of stuff. So things are never as good or ever as bad as they seem. I think America's going to be fine. I think, as long as he doesn't run for a third term, which he's not allowed
Yeah.
to, but if he can
Yeah.
figure out how to, make that happen. But if that doesn't happen, we're going to be okay. So I know that's a long-winded. I'm sharing a lot more than you asked, but I hope
That's
that's okay.
fine. More's always good. I guess like so you said it's never as bad as I guess like it's always hyped up to be. But have you like seen I guess you're in business, right? Have you seen any like tangible impacts materialize off of them with the people you work with or just notice anything that you want to share?
So the last 3, 4 months, I mean, we've had a very good year. I've had some good closings, but those were deals that were in the pipeline before January,
Mm-hmm.
before Trump came in office. Um, it started off where everybody was really positive. Um, they liked the, you know, reduction. People who are business owners are typically Republican, or, they're more conservative and they're less government. Uh, but they liked the where things were going. But what has put the pause button on is the uncertainty, the flip
Right.
flopping. I mean, no one's going to invest in building a huge facility if they don't know if the rules are constantly going to change. So the level of uncertainty has slowed things down. Now, that being said, when COVID was around, we had our best year, one
Mm.
of our best years. And the reason we did is in our industry, people, the next 10 to 15 years is going to be the largest transfer of wealth that our nation has ever seen, because the baby boomers are of retirement age, and there's a lot of people who own businesses. So there's people who always want to sell, and then there's people who are working in corporate that are tired of working for someone, or they get laid off and they want to buy. They say, I don't want to work with anybody anymore. So
Mm.
we're in a unique industry, in my opinion, is that there's always going to be people who want to buy and people who want to sell. Uh, but the uncertainty right now, today, it has slowed things down a bit. And again, I think that's going to get better as we get toward the end of 25.
I see, I see. Right. Yeah. Yeah, my dad actually talked to me about the issue with the uncertainties as well. But I do think yeah, we'll have to see, how it goes, right? We don't have a crystal ball on this matter. But yeah, that's very interesting. So finishing up this I guess issue of like policymaking and like the policy stuff on small businesses. Um like if you could like speak to a policymaker or like if you have something to say to like what would be your message to, like the policymakers on how to like improve this business climate for like, business brokers and like small businesses alike?
Well, I think for me, I'm very disappointed at how polarized the Democrats and Republicans are. They're
Right.
not working across the aisle, and they didn't. Even when Obama was in office, he did not reach out. And you know, it, Reagan was the one that I liked. He was a great communicator. He inspired the American dream. Uh, so one of the things that I encourage our state legislature and government officials is to build bridges and not walls.
Mm,
Reach across the aisle. Try to come up with some common wins. We're all Americans, and you know, I think we should have term limits. Right now, people are retired on the job. There's too many old people in
yeah.
Congress. I think uh, we got to fix our immigration policy. We've got to send a message to the world that we're open for business, and that we want legal immigration. We got to streamline the process of people getting into our country. Uh, right, I had to sell a business with somebody that that they wouldn't renew the visa. The guy had five employees, had a successful business in a rural area, and they're basically telling me he had to leave the country. But they're letting in hundreds of thousands of immigrants that will work in the farms. But here you had somebody generating taxes. So the
I
immigration
see.
policy has to be fixed, and it needs to be streamlined. So that's something that I would promote. And then I think they've got to, you know, we've got to protect our three branches of government. We were,
Mm,
we have the judiciary, which has been undermined. We got to work on making sure that, if we become a country without laws, or if it's based on nepotism or favoritism, uh, people won't invest there. They're not going to have confidence. It's just like China. If they take over, or Russia takes over industry, state-run industry, American company can have over there. They just decide to take it, and
mhm.
so nobody's going to invest in America if they think we're going to constantly change the rules. So we got to
Right.
have laws that can only be changed by Congress and not at the whim of the executive branch.
I see. Interesting. Yeah. Guess that goes back on the theme of stability and uncertainty, right? We want stability, we don't want uncertainty. It's bad for everyone to have a bunch of uncertainty. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was really interesting. I really did appreciate your thoughts on that matter. I mean, I think these are very important issues to talk about, right? There's a lot of intersection, like I said, with politics and the current business environment. Those kind of go hand in hand and fluctuate with every administration. Um, so I guess moving back on to your personal experience, your personal story. Uh, I guess throughout these years you've been in business, do you have any like you know important lesson learned, or you've kind of mentioned pieces of advice already, but like do you have any like lessons or notable pieces of advice for younger aspiring entrepreneurs or people who want to be in business?
Ask for help.
Hmm.
Identify industries or things that you may be interested. Reach out to the CEO or the founder. Ask them if you could take them to coffee or buy lunch for them. Ask them what they're tell me about your story. How'd you get into what you're doing? Um, People like me, our age, we always want to help, especially the youth. We will make time to help. Oh, you just got to ask. So
Yeah, yeah.
one, don't be afraid to ask. Okay, number one. Number two, don't don't do in your life. You need to determine what's right for you, not what's right for your parents, your professors, your religious scholars. What makes you tick. Being a school teacher is awesome. Now you have to adjust your lifestyle if you're going to be an educator. You're not going to be able to go to country clubs or
Yeah.
travel 4 months out of the year, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But do something that's fulfilling, and whatever it is, if you become the best at it, really become a master at your trade. And it's okay at your age not to know what you want to do. So I don't know, but that's the whole purpose of talking to a dozen people
Right.
and sitting with them and say, "Tell me your story. How did you get started?" Just like what you're doing now. I mean, that's what you're doing basically. So that's
Yeah.
one. Two, get exposed to the world. Travel. You don't have to go get a job right away. Take a year off, take a gap year, go somewhere, go study, go travel the world, take a backpack. You'll survive. You'll come back, you'll meet so many people. My dad, who, because he was conservative, came to America. He's like, look, you got to get a job. And I took a year off before I went to college. Best thing I ever did. My mom was like, "You do it, baby. You do it." My dad was like, "No, you don't want to do that. You need to go work.
Yeah.
You need to go to college and get a degree." And best thing I ever did, Brian, was take a gap year. I came back so energized, fired up. I finished college in 3.5 years. I knew what I wanted to do, and I met so many cool people around the world. I realized that everybody's really like us, especially if you break bread with them. Sit down,
Mm,
break bread, try to reduce the amount of time online and texting, and
Right.
getting back human to human, face to
Yeah, yeah,
face, right?
yeah.
Um, and then just don't settle. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I'll do that for 4 or 5 years and earn my dues. I mean, you can if it's something that you love. Then you like it's more about the experience than the money. So if you work with the best guru in something that you're targeting you want to do, and you work for half the salary, it's worth it. It's an investment in learning from one of the best.
Mm.
That investment will pay off later.
Right, right.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
that makes sense. And then build
Yeah,
your
yeah.
knights of the round
Yeah,
table.
of course. Yeah. Um, well, I definitely agree with at least a lot of what you said, but specific like the human interaction part. I think that's very important. It's often, perhaps missing in this digital society where we've replaced a lot of that with, like just doing stuff online, not through person. You have the rise of like artificial intelligence, which further complicates our our social like patterns, right? As a social species, that's like very how are we gonna adapt to that? Um, yeah, certainly. I think, that goes into what you said about networking, right? The networking and reaching out to people, I think is also very important that we perhaps, I don't know, I don't think we instill that onto like young people nowadays properly well enough. They think it's almost a burden to go out and talk with people, which I think is, a shame, right? What's going on.
Have you also? I mean, you're 17.
Right.
Do you know Dave Ramsey?
Dave Ramsey. I
So
don't think I
so
do.
so I recommend you. Highly recommend. There is some schools teach it, but write this down. Write down.
Right.
Um, it's called. It's Dave Ramsey. It's financial literacy for the next generation.
Mm,
So that is one of the best things. I required my children to take that class, and I'm like, look, part of being part of this family until you're out, I want you to take it. But it discusses how to stay out of debt. So financial literacy is something that our education system doesn't teach as well.
right.
So
Yeah.
and then there's a book I'd like you to read. Have you ever heard of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Understood. No, I haven't.
So it's a very easy read. Write that down.
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki, I think is his
Robert
name.
Kiosk.
Kiyosaki, but it's called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Hmm.
Those two things, you do those two things, it will allow you to think about a lot of things differently.
Right. That's interesting. I'll definitely, yeah, I wrote it down, put on my list of stuff to read. I've got a backlog of books I need to get through. Um, but I think yeah, I hope I learned something from that. I think I definitely will. Okay. So I think we've kind of covered all the major topics like I plan to talk about. I guess I can give this time to like to you. Like, do you have anything else you want to share or like anything that really, sticks out you want to talk about?
I'm real proud of what you're doing.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
what prompted this? I mean, why is it? Was it a class assignment or what? What's
The interviews or like the
yeah, yeah, the youth
oh
voice for small
yeah.
business.
So basically with my dad, right, and his business background and with what really prompted me to think about this like this organization and these reaching out to business owners was the tariff changes by the recent administration. So that struck me as something that I heard a lot about it, so I looked into it and I was like, this is like a pertinent issue, and it specifically impacted my dad a bit. He shared with me how it affected his business and how it affected people he knew. So I decided to, hey, this is important. So I should make this right, something I should look into more. And that intersected actually very well with something I was learning in my global politics class. We had an assignment going on kind of that's like it's called an engagement where you have to go out with your community and talk to people. So it's like, hey, perfect opportunity. Let's take advantage of this, right? Let's gives me an opportunity to learn about something that's very important and meet people, but at the same time, for the class as well. So I guess, partially it's for the class, but um I really I really do just want to find out more about these issues because they're rather personal to our family, but they're also important broadly, I guess nationally as well.
I think America will always be a safe haven for capital. So
Mm,
even with everything going on, it's a safe place compared to other countries. We're not an autocratic government. We do have laws. Yeah,
mm,
sure, it's been tested. Uh, I think you're going to see a lot of onshoring and reshoring. You're going
right.
to see a shift. You have seen a shift from American companies doing work in China to Vietnam to Indonesia to Malaysia. So, they're going to be able to source a lot of the product that China was sourcing. Um, I don't like it because I love China. I've been to China 3 times. I have friends in China. One of my best friends is Chinese. Um, I just think it's a lot of saber rattling. I would have handled it completely different. If I was in that role, I would have been, America's open for business. We're not an autocratic regime. Bring your money, bring your expertise to our great country, and learn and fulfill the American dream.
Right.
Of That's how I would have handled it. Now, you got to have secure borders. Anybody here's illegal. We're going to give you 6 months to come in, get fingerprinted. If you don't have a criminal record, we'll get you on a path, but you're going to pay because you're here illegally. You came here the wrong way. And then I would streamline the immigration process so that if a manufacturer needs an automated engineer or a farmer needs a laborer, then you have a pool of people that can come in quickly that have been pre-vetted that will fill these roles.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but
certainly.
but I'm not president, so
Oh, yeah.
and all I can do is keep my head down, help people, build my business, and build our great society, knowing that try to make a positive difference in one person's life at a time. And then
Mm,
when I do speak to big groups, and I do, I share a lot of this, and then hopefully that has some influence on
right.
direction. I meet with senators, and I do meet with people like that.
Mm.
But you know, that's the other thing is get involved with
Yeah,
government.
yeah, definitely. I mean, well, I think there's a saying out there like if you don't want to involve yourself in politics, politics will involve yourself in your business, right? Something like that. So, I guess even if you're not in politics, it's, important to
Check
learn
out
about.
too. I know you're young, but check out. It's an organization called No Labels. Have you heard of
Oh
it?
yeah, I've heard of it. There's a lot going on with that in the media a while ago in the election cycle.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I actually am a supporter of No Labels because
mm,
I believe in the Problem Solvers Caucus. It's all about reaching across the aisle.
yeah.
But but I gotta run my business, and I got a family, and I just had my first grandchild. I got 2 more on
Oh,
the way
wow,
for my other
congrats.
children.